This is Cisco instructor Andrea. Let's get into the fun part of access control lists and start learning how to configure them. We're going to start just by talking about how to configure standard access control lists. Then we'll move into the extended access control lists. We'll also talk about how to modify access control lists. And then finally, I'm going to do another video with a help sheet that I have. So let's review, first of all, when we think about a standard access control list, remember there's some limitations of it. It's a more simplified access control list. There's no real fine tuning. So a standard access control list can only filter based on what? Did you get this answer? It can only filter based on a source host or a source network. Remember, we can't filter standard access control lists by destinations, by port numbers, by protocols, only by the source. All right, so to create a numbered access control list, we're going to use the command access list. And the first type of access list we talk about is actually a numbered access control list. So notice here, we're going to just be in global configuration mode, and we're going to write access list. Okay, next, what we're going to do is we're going to determine the number that we're going to use. So remember, there's a range of numbers you can use for standard access control lists. And the range is 1 through 99 or 1300 to 1999. So in this example, I've written access list 10. Next, we're going to determine, well, what are we doing with this traffic? Are we denying it or are we permitting it? So in this example, we are permitting it, right? We're permitting it. Next, we're going to write in whatever our source is. So if I've got a LAN network and I want to permit the LAN network, here it is, 192.168.10.0. Next, the wildcard mask. Now notice this says optional. The reason it's optional is because there are some keywords that you can use instead of the wildcard mask. You could use the keyword host, you could use the keyword any. Now in this case, we're using the wildcard mask. So since I have a wildcard mask of 0.0.0.255, then I'm assuming my network was probably a 192.168.10.0/24. So in this scenario, the .255 means that all of the hosts on this network will be permitted, okay? Lastly, the command log. Now the log is an optional command, and this is used so that I can gather information about how many packets are matching this statement. This comes in handy, so I do like to do it, but you don't have to do it. Okay, to remove an access list, I would just use the no access list and put the number in and hit enter, and it will take that access list out. We are going to talk a little bit more about that when we learn about modifying access control lists and some of the limitations or gotchas. Okay, so now let's talk about how we would create the same type of a list, but this time we're going to call it a named access control list. Okay, so we're not going to use a number. We're going to assign a name. You may remember I really prefer the named access control list, and that's because you can use the name to kind of give a little description to what's happening. Again, with a standard access control list, they don't really get overly complicated, but these start to get real complicated when we're adding lots of parameters. So you can use capitalization, right? Everything has to run together though. And again, I do like to capitalize. So here, what do you notice the difference between the first command that we did with a numbered and now that we're doing a named standard access control list? Do you see the difference? It's right here. With a named access control list, we have to add the IP, and we're also telling the access control list oh, we are writing a standard access control list. When we're using a numbered access control list, this number tells the access list whether or not it's a standard or an extended. So in other words, if I had done access list 110, then the router would be able to determine that we were writing an extended, because the iOS is programmed to know that only the range 1 to 99 and 1300 to 1999 are standard. Anything else would be extended. Okay, well, with a named, we have to tell it that we're doing IP. This is going to actually put it into access list mode. So we come out, or we move past global configuration mode into access list mode, and then we're going to be writing a standard access list. All right, so let's take a look here. I'm going to write IP access list. I'm writing a standard access list, and I'm going to call it no access. Notice it's all capitals and we don't have any spaces in there. And this is what I want you to see next, right here. This puts us into standard access control mode. This is another reason I like writing access control lists as named access control list. I find it a little bit easier to write them and to see exactly what's happening. So this is a nice command. So we've entered, we know we're in access control list mode. If I do the question mark, it will help me write the command. Okay, so here are the different options that I have. In this example, we're going to deny. I think that I've got an example that comes up, but it tells us exactly what we can write for our standard access control list. Yep. Okay, so here we have our access control list. Okay, so here's what we're doing. We are denying host 192.168.11.10. So in this scenario, I'm not denying an entire network. I'm just denying the source host of 192.168.11.10. Then I've got the permit any, followed by the exit. Now these are called access control entries, right? So my access control list is made up of entries. So my next question is, why do I have a permit any here? Why do I need a permit any? If you can remember back from our one of our last videos when we were talking about the implicit deny. So remember, the minute you add an access control list onto a device, the device will implicitly deny everything else, because it's making an assumption, we're putting access control lists on here. We must want to implement some security. Let me help them out and just deny everything. So in this scenario, really, we only want to deny that host. If I did not put the permit any, there would automatically be a deny any. So nothing else would get through. So it's very important that you're thinking about your entire network and you get that permit any in there if you need it. Let's talk more about the implicit deny. Remember, whenever you write an access control list, you want to get at least one permit statement in there, because as soon as you add an access control list to a device, the device makes an assumption that you're adding filtering or some sort of security, so it helps you out by adding the implicit deny. So one thing that is recommended is that you add the deny any into your access control list so that you can actually see that logged in your show access list statement. So in this example, what we want to do is we want to permit this traffic from the 10.0 network to go out S00. So I write a permit statement for that, and notice it's a .25, so I'm a .255, so I'm allowing all of the hosts. And this is what I see when I do a show access list. I see access list 1, and it's a permit for this network. Okay, now because of the implicit deny, this network will automatically be denied, and maybe that's what I'm trying to accomplish. So that's fine. I could write in a deny 192.168.11.0, or just let the implicit deny do its work and do the job. So again, just notice here that we don't see anything. So we're not really able to track the denied traffic. So a really good rule of thumb is when you're writing your access list, go ahead and put whatever it is that you want to permit or deny, and then just follow it up with the deny any. Again, it's already doing that. It implicitly is doing that. But because we didn't manually type it in, we will not see it in the show access list statement, nor would any denies be logged. And it is helpful to see how many denies are hitting your access control list. You may need that to do some sort of statistical analysis. So it's a good idea to do the deny any. It's just a recommended best practice. Do you have to do it? No, it is a recommended best practice. Okay, then let's also talk about the remark parameter. Another best practice is to add in a remark. I like to tell people that it's very similar to doing a description on an interface. What a remark statement does is it's basically a way to write out in English what your access control list is doing. Access control lists can get really complicated. You may have several entries. And so if you just go ahead and put in word for word what this access control list is doing, it will really help you in the long run, especially if somebody is trying to go behind you and figure out this access control list, or they need to modify it or remove it. This will help them. Okay, so here's an example. We're doing a numbered access control list 10. What is this access control list doing? I just type in remark. I want to allow any address from the 192.168.1.0 network, right? This subnet mask, and you could even do a /24 there. You don't have to write up the subnet mask. I'm allowing any address from 192.168.1.0/24. Now I follow that up with the actual statements or the entries. Access list 10. Here I'm permitting 192.168.1.0. 000.255, so I'm permitting all the hosts off that network. And then lastly, my deny any. So these are my access control entries, okay? Whereas access list 10 is the actual access control list. So best practice, put in your deny any. Best practice, do your remark. We talked about the deny any as well as the remark. So I also just want to make a comment about the permit any when we are creating and configuring access control lists. So sometimes if you are using a deny statement, for example, right here we're using a deny statement. Remember, we would also have the implicit deny, which would deny everything else unless we follow up with a permit any. So if we've got, we're trying to deny this host right here, right, the 11.10 host, but I wanted to permit the rest of that network, I need to include the permit any, because if I just do deny host 192.168.11.10 and I don't include a permit, what's really going to happen is that entire network would get denied. So don't forget to think about when you may need a permit any. Okay, let's move on to applying the actual access control list. So an access control list doesn't actually do anything at all until it's applied to an interface. At this point, all we've done is write the access control list and its entries, but it's not doing anything yet. It won't do anything till we apply it to the interface that we want to do the work. So if you remember from the previous module and videos, we talked about that the work is being done on the interfaces. You can put an access control list on an outbound or an inbound interface, and that's when the packet will be looked at. So in this scenario, we want to deny 192.168.11.10 right down here, and we're going to determine where it is denied by where we put the access control list. Okay, so we're going to deny this, Now remember, we want to allow everything else, right? So we put the permit any. So in this example, the permit any would allow traffic coming from the serial interface to get to where we're going. And now I'm like, well, where do I want to deny this host from accessing? Okay, I want to deny it from accessing 192.168.10.0 network. So where do I put the access control list? If you remember a standard access control list, you want to put it as close to the destination as possible. So if the packet is leaving here, right, this interface would not be as close to the destination as possible. G00 would be as close to the destination as possible. So right here is where we're going to apply the access control list. So we're going to enter interface mode. Now I'm going to basically bond the interface to whatever access control list it's supposed to be looking at. So notice we use the term access group. Well, that's because often within an access control list, we have multiple entries. So we're going to group them together so that they can be looked at as a whole. So we're doing access group. Which one? The no access. And then lastly, when do we want the interface to apply it? When something's coming in or if something's going out. So in this scenario, again, remember, our packet is coming up, right? It's hitting the G01. I don't want it to look at it there. It goes through the route table. It hits this interface. Now the interface is more or less it's like acting like a security guard. So it's checking its log and it's like, do I have any access control lists for this packet? As a matter of fact, I do, and I'm supposed to deny it. So in this scenario, that packet will get dropped. Now what happens if 192.168.11.20 attempts to get to this network? Well, that one will be allowed because of the permit any. Okay, so that is how you apply an access control list. So to remove an access control list, we want, if you remember from our previous slide, you did a no access list. That removes the access list. Now we're removing it off of the interface because remember, access control lists do not work or do anything till they're actually applied to the interface. So in this case, we want to do no IP access group if we want to remove the access control list and make it stop working. Okay. So let's just take a look at the example of a numbered access control list and a named access control list. So we're going to permit traffic from 192.168.10.10, which is this guy down here. We also want to permit all the hosts from this network over here, our 20.0 network. And we're going to do this filtering out to the internet, okay? And what interface goes out to the internet? It's S010. So let's look at the numbered example first. So our numbered example, we are going to write access list 10. Notice here's my remark statement. So ACE, this access control entry, will permit only host 192.168.10.10 to the internet. Now I write the actual entry. Permit host 192.168.10.10. Okay. Also, we want all other hosts on the network to be able to be permitted, right? We want all of the other hosts. So what's going to happen here? I'm going to do another entry. So I'm still on access control list 10. I'm going to include another entry. Now I'm permitting all hosts in LAN number 2, right? And again, if we look at our scenario, here's our LAN number 2, okay? And so these are our entries. Now, what's being blocked? So if we look here, we're allowing only the 10.10. We're allowing this entire network. So that means all other hosts from LAN 1 will not be allowed to the internet. 192.168.10.27. That would not be allowed to go to the internet. Why? Because we have the implicit deny. The implicit deny is added on there, okay? Lastly, I need to apply that to an interface. When we're looking here, what is the interface that's the furthest away? It's going to be the S010. So we're going to apply it to this. When do I want the packets looked at? Well, I want the packets looked at as they're exiting the interface, so on the way out. All right, so here we've got IP access group 10, and you look at the packet on the way out. So I've grouped my different entries into one group 10. I'm looking at the packets on the way out. Let's also see how we would write this in let's look and see how it shows up when we do a show run. So I can do a show run and then pipe section access list. Now what's nice about this is it's going to show us everything that we've entered in the command line or in the configuration, the CLI. And we can take a look at it. Also, I can look at the individual interface and I can see what access control lists are applied to the interface and whether it's going in or out. See, outgoing common access list. These are the ACEs, the access control entries. Now let's see what this would look like as a named access control list. So the first thing is I'm just going to take it out as a numbered access control list. We're going to use the same topology. So IP, because remember we're going to be doing a named. So when it's a named, I have to start the command out with IP. What configuration mode is that going to put us in? That's going to put us into access list configuration mode. And I'm going to call this permit access. Also, I'm doing a standard access list. If we were writing an extended, we'd type extended there. Okay, so here again, I love this because I go into actual access control list mode. Now I enter these entries. First, I put my remark because that's going to help me and any others. What am I doing? I'm permitting this host. I'm going to do my next remark so that I know that I'm going to permit this whole network. What am I doing? I'm permitting that network and then exit. Now, what would have made this even better is if I had done a deny any so that I would be able to see that in the show access list or in the logging. This example doesn't do it, but that would have made it even better. All right, here's my entries. So where do I want to apply it? Again, we're going to apply it on S010. So what do? I enter interface mode, IP access group. I include whatever the name of my access group is. When do I want to look at the packets? Well, I want to look at the packets on the way out. There we have it. And if we do a show access list with the name, it's going to be similar. Now I see here, this is just showing me a counter. And it would keep going, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, however many on there. So if we had done the deny any, we would see a 30 deny any. Okay. Also, we can do the pipe access list so that we can get a little bit more detail and also see the remarks. Or look at the actual interface, and then I can see what access control lists are applied to the interface. That completes our video for examining our standard numbered and named configuration. In a future video, I'll give you a few hints and tips. Also, we'll look at how to modify these access control lists as well as how to create extended access control lists. Thanks for watching.